Hi everyone, welcome to the June's edition of ADEX Pixel Expo. I'm Sophia and I'll be your host for today. So joining us today, we have Louise Hartman from Australia, and she's also the CEO and founder of Plastic Collective. So just a short introduction about Louise and what she does. So she started Plastic Collective in 2016 to develop and create the shredder, which is a waste plastic shredding extrusion machine and educational training package for remote communities. Louise is passionate about reducing plastic waste and believes that education is a key component to global change. She also ran workshops on how to transform plastic waste and know your plastic seminars as she developed the Plastic Collective business. And in November, Louise was a finalist in the Sustainability Awards, Waste Less, Reduce More. In December, she competed in Australia's largest startup pitch competition and came seventh, which is the first for a woman and the first with a hardware solution of 100 startups. So a very impressive portfolio from Louise, and we are very honored to have her here with us today for this sharing session. Louise will be sharing with us about how we can move towards a more sustainable cosmetics industry with plastic issues and pollution. And this is also part of our monthly Blue Green 360 session. So without further ado, can I just pass over my time to Louise, and she'll be bringing us through her sharing session. Over to you, Louise.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, ADEX. Always a pleasure to come and do talks with you guys. Love your work. As you can see, I'm sort of out camping at the moment, so I'll turn my video off and we can start the slideshow. Okay. All right, so Plastic Collective is dedicated to educating and empowering people to eliminate waste and prevent plastics from entering the ocean. This is our goal. So over the last few years, we've developed various online training programs covering global plastic crisis, material knowledge of plastics, local community action plans, global alignment and solutions, as well as resource recovery project essentials. Next. Oh, we got next one. So recently we've been working with some very large cosmetic brands who have been seeking to radically change how they do things in their industry. We're preparing a series of educational programs specifically for these industries, starting with cosmetics, to help the brands and businesses address any fundamental gaps that they may have in designing, selling products, as well as empowering the public to make smart decisions on finding safe and sustainable cosmetic choices which don't damage the environment, the oceans, or our planet. So I'll start with a brief overview of the global cosmetic industry. Next slide, please. So if we look at the growth of the global cosmetic industry is rapidly expanding with a growth rate of 4.75. So in 2020, the industry was worth US $483 billion, with future projections expected to reach $784.6 billion by 2025. So next. The cosmetic industry can be divided basically into four broad categories. There's cosmetics or makeup, skincare, personal care, and what they call fragrances, perfumes and things. So while the personal care represents the largest section, the cosmetic makeup is the fastest growing, increasing at 32% between 2019 and 2025 projected figures. So next one. Yeah, the global cosmetic market is concentrated in two main regions, Asia and, can you just go back one there? Oh, okay. I think I might have moved. That's all right. I'll come back to that one. Yep. Okay. So, sorry, go back to where you were, Alfred. So in the industry, what we call, the educational series that we're developing, the industry relationships with plastics can be divided into 5 core topics. The first one is in ingredients and recipes. Second one is packaging design. Third, disposal and recovery. And we have degradation of plastics and planetary health impacts. So they may not sound related, but I'll just go through them and we'll discuss each one. So next. So the first topic of interest is the ingredients and recipes. Next. So this is the foundation of the entire cosmetic industry, which is what is actually in it, what are the products made from. So unlike food, cosmetics can be quite vague about what they put in their products, as we generally don't eat them, but they do get absorbed by the skin. Quite often they do go through and into the body. But how many times have you tried to read a label and we're completely confused by bizarre ingredients? And how do you decipher what are the good ones compared to what potentially could be toxic? In the education modules, we explore a number of topics on ingredients such as microbeads. These were added to skincare face washes, shampoos, toothpaste as an abrasive agent, replacing chalk and sand. We also look at phthalates and fragrances. So what's their relationship? Phthalates are basically esters, which are used as plasticizers and softeners in the plastic manufacturing business. To make them sound a bit nicer, cosmetic companies have been calling them fragrances, as they often have quite unique smells. So esters, phthalates, or fragrances are well known to disrupt the endocrine system and cause cancers. So by increasing public awareness of this and things like microbeads, brands will be encouraged to remove toxic chemicals from their products, such as that. Then you get to this, quite often you look at an ingredient list and you see poly something. The poly basically means a long chain molecule. All plastics are polymers, but so is cellulose, rubber, silk, wool, anything that's long carbon chain. So not all poly somethings means it's plastic, but it's important to understand that if the more polys you have in there, the more potential is there is going to be plastics in that ingredients list. China has codes for 140 different types of polyplastics. So next time you read a recipe, just check the ingredients, see how many polys are sitting in there, if you can see them. Okay, next. Packaging design can basically be broken up into primary and secondary packaging. So we'll go next one. And not all the plastic waste comes from the cosmetic industry, obviously. However, by far the vast majority of waste, this is a map of, a graph of plastic waste generated by different industrial sectors. The majority of it does come from packaging of all sorts. So particularly single-use packaging is one of the biggest threats to the environment and planetary health. Packaging can be divided into your primary, which is where you put the ingredients, and then your secondary packaging, which might be wrappers, it might be your postage bag, a lot of online shopping now. So there's quite often a secondary packaging. Sometimes there's even a third packaging, which sort of starts to add up with a lot of packaging. So next one. So one of the most important things for cosmetic companies to do is to design sustainable packaging. Looking at its entire life cycle is really, really important. So to design and develop sustainable packaging that fits a circular economy, we need to explore different types of materials, the function, as well as where the product's going to end up. So you can see in this photo that you have, on this beach, there's all sorts of packaging. This island has no waste collection. It's a small remote island. Everything gets thrown onto the beach or into the ocean. Quite often there's small sachets that are sold because they're cheap, but these are multi-laminates. They put shampoo and different things in there. So this designing the right sort of packaging needs to be sort of addressed for the community that you're sending the materials to. Looking at carbon footprinting versus plastics versus things like glass and metal. You also have what they call naked packaging, where you're developing materials that are being developed without packaging. So this is a whole science around actually designing it. Refillable containers, again, like if you were to look at using refillable containers for places that have high leakage, then that would definitely cut down the amount of waste and leakage going into the environment. All right, so we go to the next one. So looking at the global commitments and what's happening, I mean, the global alignment worldwide and the commitments that are happening currently, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation back in 2016 put out the New Plastic Economy, which had four main components, which was one was to eliminate problem or toxic plastics, one was to move from single-use to multi-use packaging. Next one was to make sure your packaging is 100% either reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And then also introducing post-consumer recycled content into products. This is a really important movement globally because this gave people a roadmap of what to do. So a lot of companies needed this guidance. There's over 500 signatories. There's a lot of packaging companies, but unfortunately there's only 3 cosmetic signatories, which would be good if there was a lot more. So if you know any cosmetic companies that would like to join up, they can be sort of guided through this process of helping to redesign their products and helping to make them more sustainable. This will always will also give them a competitive edge because at the moment consumers want sustainable products, and our aim is to sort of support cosmetic companies in being able to develop these things within their own business so that they can they can be good brands basically. Other various programs that came from the global commitments includes things like the 3R initiative, reduce, recycle, recover. This was set up by packaging companies, which included Danone, Tetra Pak, and standard regulators, Vera, and they developed the plastic waste reduction standard. This is a way to monetize and get plastic credits for remote and vulnerable communities or places that don't have very good recovery of plastics, and to enable larger brands to help support and build that industry. So we'll just go to the next one. I'm just briefly touching on a lot of things here. So in our training program that we're putting online, we're planning on having this available for people that they can come and they can explore all these topics in more depth. Disposal and recovery. So this is really important for cosmetic companies to understand what happens to their products after they've been used. Where do they go? One of the biggest things that sort of shocked me was looking at the distribution of the cosmetic industry around the globe. So as you can see, the Asia Pacific region represents almost half of the entire global plastic market. So that is very significant because when you look at the mismanagement and the plastic leakage of plastic, it also is focused in this region. So go to the next one. So 60% of the global mismanaged plastic comes from the Asia Pacific region. It's got the greatest amount, with China and India each representing 40% of all mismanaged global plastics. So, with a lot of cosmetics and the cosmetic industry increasing in this area, this is something that needs to be addressed quite quickly to ensure that it's not getting out of control, which at the moment in many places it is. So we'll go to the next one. Okay, so obviously the mismanagement of plastic will lead to the leakage into the environment. So when I say mismanagement, that means there's no recovery. They're either burning it, burying it, or dumping it, and that leads to the leakage or the escaping of plastics into the environment and into the ocean. So again, the area that's got the highest leakage to the ocean, which is a massive 80% of the entire global total, is this region, is this Asia Pacific region. It's fundamentally important that the cosmetic industry sort of is aware of this and they start to pivot quickly to address this crisis. We'll go to the next one. Oh, sorry, I think that was the one I was on just then. Yeah, so that shows you the plastic waste that's, yep, that's the one. Okay, so disposal and recovery in this region, quite often in this area, you do have, there's 55,000 islands in this area. A lot of places are remote, they lack infrastructure, there's wages are very low, which makes it really difficult to recover and recycle materials. And when they're using a lot of single-use sachets that are cheap, they get washed down into the ocean and it quickly becomes quite a problem. When cosmetic companies are looking at selling products in these regions, they need to look closely at what their packaging how it will contribute to the ocean pollution, to just redesign what they're doing. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Yeah, and this leads us to taking responsibility for products. So for the plastic use and the end life of products. When they say extended producer responsibility programs, these are designed to recover and recycle the actual plastic waste produced from companies' activities. We work particularly with a range of companies developing their own EPR and how to increase material collection strategies in particular regions. For example, if a company wanted to work in an area, say in Vietnam, then we can work with projects that are collecting and recovering materials and also provide plastic credits and mechanisms to increase their activities, equipment or facilities. So the next one is sort of about the degradation of plastic. What actually happens when plastic's being used, turns into waste and pollution, and it doesn't go away, but we'll just go to the next slide. But it does start to degrade. So there's different levels of degradation. Basically, they break into small molecules, but they continue to impact wildlife, and they also impact climate change, which I'll show you. So fibers is one of the most prolific microplastics that they're finding, or microfibers. They come from synthetic materials such as polyester, which is originally that's from PET, which is your drink bottles. They're broken into, when you wash them, and you might have any type of synthetic material, might be polypropylene, polyester, but when you wash them, they're broken into fragments in a washing machine, or every time you wash them, these fibers become microplastics and end up in the ocean. They're starting to find these fibers pretty much everywhere, including the Arctic snow. And they've found that these microparticles will increase snow melts, which will also impact climate change and global warming. The other ones are microparticles from dust, such as tires, paint, synthetic materials, which they escape filters. They also become the micro and nanoparticles. Marine life ingests these particles, which move through their tissues into their muscles of fish and other seafood, and humans will also eat these. So humans are absorbing and eating a lot of microplastics. The UV degradation, so when plastics are floating around in the ocean, they undergo UV degradation, breaking into smaller parts. Some plastics break down faster than other ones. For example, HDPE will break down quicker than PET, but then most of them will sink as well. So when they break into these smaller particles, they also start to emit toxic greenhouse gases such as methane and ethylene. They absorb toxic chemicals and become biohazards. Because they don't break down for so long, they move around on the currents, carrying pathogens that can kill coral reefs and other habitats. So the degradation of plastics into small parts is a real problem. So for any companies that are working with plastics, they have to understand if their plastics are contributing to the waste, then this is the impact of what that's having. Next slide. So the planetary health impact, looking at the entire planet, where we're heading, at the moment we're looking at climate change. Planetary health is very important for a number of reasons. It impacts people, nature, environment, and the economy. So everything is impacted by this. So next slide. Okay, so sort of summarizing those 4 sections, we can this is some of the impacts from those 4 sections. So if you look at the harmful ingredients that might be, plasticizers or additives that are, used in the plastic industry, such as ethers or the fragrances, they're hormone endocrine disruptors that can lead to cancers. It can also cause infertility in animals and wildlife because of the hormone disruptors, and it can also cause other serious health issues. The poor production design of packaging, basically communities won't have the ability to recover or recycle. This will cause materials to be burnt, buried, or dumped. And then the discarded packaging, what happens to that? It will damage drains, it causes floods, it damages equipment, damages boats, which impacts people's livelihoods, particularly if they're fishermen living on the coast. They're pathogenic carriers of disease for coral reefs, which are a huge biological, bio hotspots, which, host so much marine life. The ingestion and entanglement of marine life also causes, a lot of animals to die, as we've seen in the media. And this material won't break down for decades. So the final one, the plastic degradation. So the bioaccumulation of toxins, marine life deaths, causing emitting greenhouse gases, and it also increases global warming. So next one, what's the answer? Well, okay, so there was a photo on there, but it seems to, anyway, just imagine there's a group of people smiling and working together. Sustainable cosmetics. So to ensure the cosmetic industry is sustainable and protects the health of the planet, all sectors are required to take part in radical change and collaborate by empowering people with knowledge and inspiring with circular economy principles. So my advice is for consumers, learn about your products, understand them, learn what to avoid, which brands to support, buy right, and use your consumer power to change how things are done, and then educate others. For product designers, learn about cradle-to-cradle design principles, which is a circular economy design system that helps you look at the beginning and end life. If you can't recycle it, reuse it, or recover it, then don't make it. So be innovative and creative. Brand owners should really get to know their customers and where their products are going, and just insist that products should suit the community's conditions, not the other way around. Everybody should eliminate harmful plastics. They should use biodegradable wrappings where you can, use recyclable plastics as much as possible, and also support best practice. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Louise. So maybe I'll just drop in like a small question for you about your presentation. Yep. So you've mentioned a lot about what Plastic Collective has been trying to do and what you guys have been striving to achieve, your big goals. So can I just ask if there's any challenges that's that you are facing so far with your mission for like a more sustainable cosmetics environment?
Yeah, well, it's what we're finding is the cosmetic industry is very, very open and really want to change.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lack of knowledge out there, which we're trying to address. We're trying to find the gaps and find out what do people want to know, how can we best help them, how can we empower them with knowledge. And I think when you give people the right tools, they can make major changes. So we're really interested in sort of this radical collaboration, working together at all levels, like with the plastic manufacturers, with the biggest brands you can imagine, with the grassroots communities, and with the cosmetic industries. So yeah, just work with everybody, and just keep, like, I'd love to have any feedback if anybody wants to learn anything, if there's some information they're missing. We run online workshops. People can go in there and do training. They can educate themselves in all different things.
I see, I understand. Thank you so much. Okay, so before we end off, maybe you can just drop in like a call for action to all of the viewers here about what they can do. Since they are, I mean, most of the viewers, I would expect that they are not all of the viewers are cosmetics, in the cosmetics industry. So as consumers themselves, what are what calls for action that you want to shout out to them? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you think of the cosmetic industry, I immediately think, oh, makeup, but it's not the case. Like you've got your shampoos, your moisturizers, there's so many things that you don't realize. And I've got this habit now that when I go to buy something, I'll look at the ingredients first, then I'll look at the packaging, and then I'll start to question, where does this come from? What's their intention? So, through my choices, I like to sort of research a little bit more and just try and understand, what am I using? What am I putting on my body? And is it good for the environment? Is it, is it a beneficial program that they're working with other communities, for example? So, and I think the power of consumers is incredible. And because you can see a lot of the brands are really wanting to go down this route of making more sustainable products, but also reducing the amount of packaging, because they know packaging is one of the biggest problems. I'd really like to see people addressing the endless sachets that are sold in developing countries, because they're very cheap, they use them, but I'd really like to start to see innovative refilling of, people get one container and they refill it. It's sort of a bit like when we had the water bottles. It took quite a number of years to move to water dispensers and for people just to come and refill a bottle rather than sort of having to buy a new bottle every single time. The same thing is happening, should be happening with the sachets, where you can just refill your bottle for, maybe if you can only afford $1, get $1 worth of refillable rather than having to buy 10 sachets that will get thrown into the water.
Yeah, I would like to echo that sentiment that consumers really have the power, since it just works on a demand and supply mechanism, right? So as long as we make the conscious effort to be conscious about our choices, then it really makes a difference in the cosmetics industry, even though we are not the people producing these cosmetics. So exactly. I think that's about it for our session today. Thank you so much, Louise, for your time, even though you're camping out there.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone benefited from her very insightful sharing about cosmetics industry, which is something that is quite niche in terms of cosmetics and sustainability. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Louise. We'll see you at EDX. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.